So what I'm going to be talking about today is whether keeping the body alive is worthwhile. If you're not having a quality of life that you would expect, then should you continue to keep the body alive? And what about euthanasia? What about people who are in such dire circumstances, mentally and psychological, or mentally and physically, that they can't live further? Then what do they do with their bodies? So that's what I want to talk to you today. And if you have any questions, I would like you to bring them up at the end. Go ahead and put them in the chat, or if you want to, I think that there is a Q&A here too. And if you want to keep the questions until the end, then I can answer them then. So the problem is with terminal care. Terminal care it takes up 10% of the healthcare costs in the United States. We spend them on procedures and on drugs and on people, the labor that's involved, just to keep the body alive for a few days or for a few weeks or for months. And the question is it worthwhile when the person is just suffering, is not in a good state of mind? So the options are hospital care, hospice care, or nursing home care that costs $9,000 a month. So that's what it takes to keep the body alive for a few more weeks or days or months. So the dilemma is that when the end of life comes, and we don't fully understand what it is that's going on. If we understood, then we would approach it differently. We would think about the end of life differently. Life is just a short period in our eternal existence where we learn lessons and we grow in love and compassion, and we just have fun. We just enjoy this life. And so then there comes a period at the end when we've done everything that we needed to do in this life, when we're ready to go on to the next stage of our eternal lives. So then death happens, and death is natural and normal. It is the stage that we all need to come to so that we can continue to the next stage of our lives. But why does the body have to die? Well, the body has to die because there's a reason for everything in the physical realm. So we have sunlight that gives us light and gives us warmth, and we have to eat in order to give the body nurturance and to keep the body alive. And we have to drink, and all of these things are reasons for what happens to the body and to us. And so we have to have something that happens when we transition from this life and go into the next life. Something has to happen to let everybody else know that this person has made the transition. And then we have to stop functioning in the earth plane. And we do that by just dropping the body off. The body has to stop functioning. So that's the reason for it. If we could get by doing it some other way, then I imagine we would. If we could walk over to some place that was an induction center and walk into the induction center and walk out the other side and would be in the next life, and that's the way you get there, then we would do that. But life is set up so that there is a reason for it, a reason for our having the transition, and the reason we have is the body stops functioning. So when the body deteriorates, there's no need to try to keep the body alive when the quality of life is gone. The person has already run the race. They've already finished with what they intended to do. A few more weeks or months of additional life when there's not a quality of life is not worth it. And so we enter the next stage of our life as a graduation. The death of the body for the caterpillar is the beginning of new life as a butterfly. And that's what happens for us. The next life is a wonderful time of rest, joy, and breathtaking experiences. There we have a reunion with our loved ones, our pets, and those who have been helping us our entire lives that we didn't even realize were out there helping us. The death of the body is a natural act of life looking forward to the graduation. So we have exit points that we planned before we came into the Earth School. To understand the transition that we have at the end of life, then you have to understand what the exit points are. So I'd recommend that everybody read Rob Schwartz's Your Soul's Plan and Your Soul's Gift. Rob has had mediums that he worked with, and the mediums would speak to people living in the life after this life and their guides, and he would understand things about what it was that happened during the planning session when they were planning their lives. And he describes that in his two books. They're wonderful books, and I really recommend them to you. So I'm going to be taking some excerpts from them to give to you, and also from some other sources to tell you about the end of life and the exit points and what happens and why they're happening like that. Our souls plan the experiences that will enable us to learn lessons, to grow in love and compassion, and enjoy our lives as a planning group. So there is a planning group that comes together. They are the souls, they are the guides, they are those who will be engaged in helping us in Earth School. And they come together and they plan our lives for us. Some of these lives can be planned rigidly. In other words, every event is planned, or they can be planned loosely so that the life is not so thoroughly planned and things happen as they are. But we always have free will. So whatever it is that happens during our lives, we can choose to screw it up. And we can do that. And then we can come back and learn the lesson again. So when things change and we don't learn the lesson we were to learn, then our souls and our guides and those of the other people who are engaged with us in the Earth School, then will come together and they'll make decisions about what's going to happen next. And then they'll change the circumstances. They don't force us. We have free will. We will never be forced into doing something, but the circumstances may change. So we have a different set of challenges or a different way of getting at what it is that we're to learn. So the composition of this group, this planning group that gets together before we come into Earth School, they are there to help us with the circumstances of our lives. The group comprises souls who will have the Earth School experience with us, the guides who are available as discussions are necessary, and higher level ascended masters when necessary. And they will come together and they will be involved. The higher level masters will not be routinely involved. They'll just be brought in for specific planning sessions. So our souls will plan our lives first by deciding on the circumstances of our lives. We chose our families, we friends and colleagues, physical and mental capabilities and limitations. And there's a choice of families and colleagues and everyone else is going to come together. And that planning for us is done by our souls. Now, our souls are the ones that are intertwined with the higher self. So they are part of the higher self. We have not come into being yet because of the fact that we'll develop our Earth School personality. We'll be born in Earth School. We'll acquire all of our skills, all of our memories, and then we will grow in love, compassion in Earth School. But we are not part of the planning cells, so planning sessions ourselves, because we have not yet grown into who we're going to be. But the planning sessions are held and they will decide on the neighborhoods and home environment, prosperity or lack of prosperity, schools, careers, and all of these sorts of things. So our souls will then plan life events that will help us to confront challenges and grow from them and have learning experiences that will enable us to learn what we come into the Earth School to learn. Then they plan our exit points. And usually it's more than one exit point. And it's really important to understand exit points. There usually is maybe 2 or 3 exit points. And when the exit point comes, our souls, our guides, and the others who are part of the planning group come together and they decide whether we have learned the lessons that we came into Earth School to learn. And if we've learned the lessons, then we can take that first exit point. If not, or we still have things to learn, or we still have to confront challenges, then we will go on to the next exit point. But at some point, they will say, yes, it's time. This is when we're going to come to the exit point. And we could come to all of our exit points and come to the last one. And we still haven't learned the lessons, but that's okay. We're not penalized for it. We're not judged for it. We simply just won't learn them. And what will happen is then the planning group will come together and they will then incarnate another person who will come into Earth School. And that person, they will take a framework from our life because we didn't learn the lessons. They'll take the framework from our life and the circumstances from our life, and they'll put them into this new person. And that person then will confront the challenges and will attempt to overcome them. But that's part of the process. The process is that we will confront the challenges. And when we do so, then we grow. And when we grow, the higher selves grow. And when the higher selves grow, all of humanity grows. And that's the way in which these planning sessions affect what happens to us. And these exit points can then be delayed to some extent. There's a story of a little boy who wanted to wait until his sister was old enough that he could talk to her about his passing. And he said he would like to have one more year, just one more year to stay, even though he was terminally ill and if he was going to pass any day. He wanted one more year. And so sure enough, he had exactly 1 year. And his little sister was old enough that he told her about what was going to be happening during the passing. So they can be delayed. It is possible. But generally, if an exit point comes, that is exit point, they are going to be taken out at that point. Doesn't matter whether the EMTs made it there on time. Doesn't matter whether we should have kept them from going in that car and to keep them from having that accident. None of that makes any difference. When the exit point comes, the person is going to be there and is going to be going to the exit point. That's just part of the process. So the planning is being done then on boards. So the planning group, which is the souls and the guides and souls of other people as well as our soul, they will sit around on this board and they will pull things from other lives that we need to learn. We as a higher self, we need to learn, all of us as a group, we need to learn new things. And so they'll pull parts of other people's lives. They may pull a whole framework from a person's life. So that if they pull a framework, the whole framework from another person's life, so that we can learn lessons that person didn't learn, or become engaged in things that person didn't become engaged in, then that person is intertwined with us. And so when that person is intertwined with us, we can have a past life regression, and we will go into the circumstances of their life. That's where past life regressions come from. But it's because we're intertwined with another being. We do not reincarnate, in other words, come back as some other being or some other person, because of the fact that we know that we're able to communicate with people who are from past ages. Confucius has come through and communicated from the 5th century BC. The Romans have come through from the Roman Empire in the 1st century AD. And we've had one man who came through in Anthony Borgia's book, Life in the World Unseen. And he said he'd been in the next stage of life, just enjoying that next stage of life for 1,000 years. So we as individuals never heard of anybody who said, oh, I couldn't communicate with my grandma because she'd already reincarnated. And that just doesn't happen. That's not what happens. But the planning group then will draw from these other souls, from these other persons who have gone through Earth School, and take fragments of their lives and may take a whole framework from their life. And that's where the past life regressions come from. So they explore life event alternatives, and they say, well, if this person has these abilities and confronts this obstacle, what might happen? What are some, and they talk about what the obstacles are and what might happen and what the difficulties might be, and what the souls then can do, and the souls then of the individual who is coming in, and also the souls of the others, because they'll come together when they are guiding us, and they'll come together and help to make decisions about where we're going to be doing next. And so they say, what happens when they confront this challenge? What might happen? Murder, suicide, and violence are never planned. They are never planned activities. So in other words, those are not part of the soul's planning. As Suzanne Giesemann said, the talented medium and channeler, she said that she received the message from the other side, from Sanaya, the group of souls who speak through her. She said that these things, murder and suicide, are free will gone awry. And so we do have free will, and so it's possible that we could have violent tendencies, and then we want to, hopefully then the person will grow out of that as they go through Earth School. But there is a possibility that something might happen, and it's free will, but it's free will gone awry. Each person then has a primary challenge, and that's one of the reasons that we look for the exit point. When they have achieved their primary challenge, they've taken care of that. So we can look back on our lives and we can say, you know, I think this is the most amazing thing that's happened to me. I've grown through this. I've learned things from it. I didn't think I was going to make it through it. It was pretty tough, but I made it through it, and I am a changed person as a result of it. That was the primary challenge. And there is one primary challenge. There may be more other challenges that are strong, but there is the primary challenge. And this is what you will learn. This is where you will learn what the soul, your soul and the soul group has decided is the most important lesson for you to learn, so that you benefit them, you benefit our higher self, and you benefit humankind in general by learning these lessons. No, we may choose not to go through them. We may choose to use our free will and just not go to that challenge and shirk from it and shrink back and choose not to and confront it. And that is our free will. And hopefully we won't. Hopefully we will go through it and we will learn from it. And then the other persons in our soul group then will have learned as well. Many people have a primary challenge that has dominated their thoughts and plans in pre-birth planning. It may be learning compassion or humility or trust or other centeredness or sensitivity or some positive learning. If a person's life seems to be dominated by challenges and growth in an area, that likely is the area of the primary challenge. But it is so profound. The area of the primary challenge is the area that may not be successfully achieved. In other words, it really is strong. This is really a big one. And so there's a good possibility the person will not manage to take care of that challenge. And so that may happen. That is a possibility it could happen. So during the planning group, then they're viewing alternatives. They're saying, well, what happens if this happens? What if the person is strong in this area and weak in this area, and what might they go through as they go through their life and they grow from being an infant into being an adolescent into a young adult into adulthood. And so they look ahead and say, what are the possibilities that might have? And then based upon what they've decided, then the person is born into Earth School and grows up in those circumstances and confronts those challenges through life. Detours occur and the person can be guided through influences and circumstances so that an alternative path may be necessary. But the most of it, the outline of it, is set up in the pre-birth planning. Some of the learning is through opposites. A person may want to learn to be humble, and so the person is born into a rich family and has to deny the riches. The Gautama, the Buddha, Siddhartha, the Buddha, was from a wealthy family, and he denied that. He turned his back on it because he saw the impoverishment of the people. And so then he began his quest to understand life, and that's what happened that's where Buddhism came from. And so what he did, he obviously was in a circumstance in which he was wealthy, and then he discovered that he wanted to learn more about people, about humility. And so that was his life challenge. That was what he went through. I'm going to give you an example from Rob Schwartz's Your Soul's Plan. This is a direct quote from his book, and this will give you one of the reasons why you really ought to pick up his book and read it. So this is what came through the medium about the soul's plan of an individual, and this is what the medium discovered from those who were doing the planning when they described the planning process. For instance, a deeply compassionate soul who wishes to know herself as compassion may choose to incarnate into a highly dysfunctional family. As she is treated with a lack of compassion, she comes to appreciate compassion more deeply. It is the absence of something that best teaches its value and meaning. A lack of compassion in the outer world forces her to turn inward, where she remembers her own compassion. The contrast between the lack of compassion in the physical world and her inner compassion provides her with a more profound understanding of compassion and therefore herself. From the perspective of the soul, the pain inherent in this learning process is temporary and brief, but the resultant wisdom is it's literally eternal. So if you look at your own life and you say, what are the obstacles that I've encountered? What are the challenges that I've had? Which ones do I seem to have learned from? I grew from. I became a different person as a result of it. Then that was probably a primary challenge. That was a challenge that you were given to learn in your lifetime. You might also look back and say, well, what is it that I might not have done? What is it that I didn't confront, that I didn't overcome? And you would say, well, that was a challenge that could be a primary challenge, but it's one that you didn't meet for some reason, and you may find it coming up again. So whatever that challenge is that you didn't confront, you may find it coming up again in your life. So all involved are willingly joining as partners in this process. During the pre-birth planning, all of the souls, and even the souls of people who are obviously going to receive some sort of negative circumstances, and they were going to be inflicted upon by an individual. They all realize this. They all accept the fact that they are going to be with this person who's going to be violent, and so then they then are willing to go through it. The violence is not something which is predetermined. That is not something. The violent acts are not something in the soul's plan. The tendency toward it would be in the soul's plan, but not the violent acts. And so then everybody involved knows it. They're all a part of the process. Some members may take on personalities that they know they're going to be cruel and they're going to be disliked, and that's just part of what they took on. And it is their souls that make that planning process. The plans of some people are to be of service to humankind. So if you can look at some people, and it seems like they're just dedicated, everything they do is to do something for humankind. That's what they're there for. That's their primary challenge. Their primary challenge is to do something for humankind. Other people may have grown up with people with disabilities. Their primary challenge is to be able to be compassionate and loving, even when it's difficult, when you have to take care of someone who has disabilities. So what happens is then in the pre-birth planning, then we come into Earth School as a soul group. So all the souls that are in the soul group are part of the planning, and they plan each other's lives that are going to be coming into Earth School. And so this is I'm going to read something from Richard Martini, who's the producer of films about the afterlife. You may know his name. He describes the results of his research into soul groups. People under deep hypnosis claim, and that's the thousands of cases Dr. Helen Wambach and Michael Newton and the 45 I've filmed, that we all have soul groups that we incarnate with. They average 3 to 25 people per group, almost like a classroom. And those people are often the ones you meet where you say, I feel like I've known them forever. They claim that some family members may be part of our soul group, but that some may not be. They may be with affiliated groups that we interact with in our various lifetimes, but aren't connected to. They also claim the members of our soul group may surprise us. It's generally people who've had some kind of a dramatic effect on our lifetime. Could be a person you only met once, or was a teacher, or someone you least suspect. They claim that after your lifetime, you return home, their word, where you work out your next adventure with the guidance of your loved ones. You can say no to coming back. You're not forced by anyone, and so forth. And so then there's that fact comes that you do not come alone. You never leave alone. So then that soul group then incarnates with us, and the souls then are part of the process of helping us to learn lessons, to grow in love and compassion, and to just enjoy life, just have fun in life. So these planning arrangements can be unintentionally interrupted. There can be somebody violates something in their circumstances, and so they can be interrupted. And then the souls will get together and they will make plans, the souls and the guides, and they will make plans to make changes and inspire us to go through those changes. Tragedies are part of life plans. So during the planning, the souls involved will plan tragedies. It's just a part of the process of learning. They may be difficult, but the person will be given all the support from the other people's souls, from our guides, from others who are engaged with us. Some people will plan to be of service to others, and I thought that this was profound, that medium Stacy Wells, her spirit guide, spoke about the reasons that souls choose to be disabled, or other souls choose to care for disabled children. So this is what she wrote. Handicaps are chosen by souls because it gives them opportunities they would not normally have, replied the spirit guide. Sometimes it gives souls a different way to learn the same lesson they've been working on. Often it is chosen as a challenge to the caretaker to show compassion, mercy, and love. Souls choose to honor other souls by making themselves the vehicle through which they can be born. They choose to care for those souls by allowing them, the handicapped children, to live this life as they wished, less involved in the ordinary everyday functions of life. It is a unique opportunity for the handicapped child, and it is an opportunity for the parent to show love. These agreements are made out of love. So these afflictions, these tragedies, these difficulties that we go through are planned. They are part of the planning process. And then we come to the exit point, and that's what we're talking about today. We come to that exit point when it is the decision has been made. Our souls, our guides, everyone in the group has decided we are to the point where this person has done everything that they need to do. This is an exit point that's coming up, and they're going to be taken, or they're going to graduate from Earth School during that exit point. And so that's just the point at which we have that assurance that we have done everything that we needed to do. We have accomplished everything we needed to accomplish. And now is the time when we're going to be taken out. So then what happens when we try to keep the body alive for a few weeks or a few months, and all that's doing is making it more difficult for the person. It makes them suffer when they don't need to suffer. They are going to graduate, and that just keeps the graduation from happening. They're not playing racquetball. They're not having fun. They're not out on a motorcycle. This is a bad time for them, and they should be able to go on into their admission into the next stage of their lives. This idea of being in hospitals and hospices was not something which came up until the beginning of the 20th century. And that's when people stopped passing it at home. It's coming back now. People are passing at home because it's up to about 37% of the American public now who have chosen to pass at home. There are challenges with doing that because there are not the facilities, not the treatments that are available in hospice or in hospitals or in nursing homes, but people are choosing that, and then they should be able to do that, pass when they're ready, even if it is a few weeks or a few days earlier than it would have been if they'd have been in the hospital, because they can do it with their family around them, and at that time then they can make the transition, and everybody else can experience the transition into the life after this life. So one of the options that comes up is whether euthanasia should be an option. The question is not whether euthanasia is an option, but whether it is possible, it is whether we would be judged for taking our own lives. And it's a very primitive notion that there is a judgment after this life, and that if we choose to take our own lives, then we're going to be judged for it, and awful things are going to happen to us in the next life. They're going to go to hell, and all these terrible superstitions that are now going away. But when a person has reached a point in their life when they are mentally and physically in a point in which they're only going to have suffering and tragedy for the remainder of their life, they should be able to make the choice to then take an exit, to have an exit point. And so that's one of the things that's being debated now, but it's not being debated from the point of view of understanding that people are eternal beings having a physical experience, and we will exit at some point, regardless of what happens. It's from the point of view of a materialist who believes that there is only this life, and this is all that there is, and need to cling to every moment of this life, and that people are not going to be allowed to make a decision about their own lives. And so we would have to say that's just a misunderstanding. It is not an understanding of who we are in eternity.